Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show. Today, we're recording this on the evening of Monday, September 12th, which means that there is a game going live as we speak that we are not watching because we care about you, the people, because we are here, Mike Dickinson, to break down our favorite waiver wire targets of the week. Now, before we get into it, okay, we got to talk about one of our DFS Army members because at the end of the day, it says it in the title, we are a DFS company. And one of our longtime patrons, Rapid Fire XD, took down the Millie Maker yesterday. So congratulations to Rapid Fire XD, man. And so if you go to the DFS Army website, there's a few articles that are actually breaking down the process and just looking back and looking at what he did well. And look, it's so impressive, man. I mean, when there's like a million type entries that are going into these contests nowadays, it's just every single day, Mike, we were tweeting out from the DFS Army Twitter account, people who were just making money. And even look, you don't need to be betting because some of these guys are mass multi-entries or spending hundreds or if not thousands of dollars. You can go and just play a few small dollar contests and you can still cash using the tools on the DFS Army website. So, I mean, pretty much you follow our Twitter, people were adding the DFS Army account, and it's just win after win after win. I call it ABC, Mike. Always be cashing.
I love it. Yeah. I'm not a DFS guy myself, but that's why we're here to talk about some waiver wire ads for you season-long players.
Yeah, so for you season-long players, I would say probably let's start with the running back position, Mike, because that's, typically that's the most caloric type position in terms of an instant impact to your fantasy team. And this week, I guess, should we say it was expected? Elijah Mitchell went down with a knee issue. He's now expected to miss up to 8 weeks. And so obviously that's going to open up an opportunity for the San Francisco running backs. Now, the most obvious player that I'm looking at, Mike, would probably be Jeff Wilson, who he did have a 59% snap count, and he was the lead back after Elijah Mitchell was hurt. But what's interesting is that Tyrion Davis-Price, who was a rookie that they drafted this year, he was inactive. He was a healthy scratch, which I don't know. Maybe the Niners have a thing for healthy scratching their rookies. But Jordan Mason, he ended up being the third string running back, but he played more so on special teams. So for the people, I'm going to recommend, and this kind of hurts me to say, that I think Jeff Wilson is probably the running back to own in that backfield. But I get the feeling this is going to completely devolve into a complete committee. So what do you think?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And we've seen injury issues linger with Jeff Wilson. I think he had either knee or hamstring last year. So he's not the most rugged guy. What we liked about TDP in the pre-draft process was his size. And then we really liked his landing spot. So if you got room, hopefully if you drafted Mitchell, you already had Wilson as the handcuff because that's who everybody was kind of projecting to be the handcuff all the way through. This was always going to be a timeshare backfield. So hopefully what you can do is you can bump Mitchell down to your IR spot and just throw TDP right in there. That would be the ideal situation.
I know nobody gives a crap about my fantasy team, but on one of my home league teams, I rolled out Allen Robinson, Cam Akers, and Elijah Mitchell. So needless to say that barring a miracle tonight, I'm probably going to lose that matchup. It is what it is. Fantasy hurts. What would you be willing to pay in terms of a fab budget, Mike? Because this is what it really comes down to, is that I'm not sold that Jeff Wilson is going to just take the reins. I could see it maybe being a 50-50 market share. My suggestion would be between 25 to 30% of your fab. And that's on the high end. If I'm bidding and I don't need running backs, I'm not desperate, probably 12, 13% realistically. My max bid for this, if you're desperate, because look, some people do play in deeper leagues, I'm probably going to say 25 to 30, but that's on the maximum end. If it's me, I'm putting 12, 13 bucks down max.
Yeah, I'm in the 5 to 15 range tops. I think that the problem with it is that Trey Lance is going to get the high value touches there, the goal line stuff. So he's going to eat away at it. So you see Wilson, you see a little bit of TDP, you see Trey Lance. I think it's just going to be ugly.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to read these in order of our priorities. So if you disagree, let us know. Hit us up in the comment section if you believe one of these other players should be higher up. So next up, we got James Robinson, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Cam Akers was one of our favorites. He's going to be the Achilles bounce back. Well, guess what? Cam Akers did nothing, and James Robinson, all he did was produce. And what was interesting about Mr. Robinson, Mike, is the fact that him and ETN actually had almost a 50% snap count. ETN was 51%, James Robinson was 49%. But Mr. Robinson rushed for 11 times for 66 yards, and of course, he got the one touchdown, and he got one of two targets for 3 yards. Now, ETN, by comparison, he only rushed 4 times for 47 yards. That's a pretty damn good ratio there. And he got 2 passes for a total of 18 yards. So ETN was kind of disappointing, but it really was a 50% share. ETN probably, well, he's definitely not on your waiver wire. James Robinson could be. He definitely could be. So I like Robinson. Man, I'm starting to think he should have been a number 1 guy, but I'm in the same thing. Because it's going to be a timeshare, because it's still the Jags. Again, maximum if you're desperate, 25, but probably what, $12-13 again?
So I'm higher on Robinson than I would be on any of the San Francisco backs, and there's 2 reasons why. One, I've seen the Doug Peterson show for years in Philadelphia. Doug Peterson splits his backs, he splits his backfields. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about ETN being better. He'll run him in for 3 series and then run him out for 3 series. That and the fact that I think that 3 years in, we just got to admit that James Robinson is probably a pretty freaking good football player.
He's
like,
good. Yeah, man.
He produced for 2 years as an undrafted free agent, and he's come back. Yeah. He tore his Achilles in January, and he's back, and he put up 2 touchdowns yesterday. I mean, that is absolutely insane. I think he might just be an elite athlete, and maybe he doesn't have the test metrics to show it, but I think he's just good at football. So for that reason, I think he has longer-term value all through the rest of the season. So what you're looking to do with your fab early in the season is you want to maximize it. Like, I know there's some guys that always want to have a chunk of fab left at the end so they can blow it out and get the prize free agent going into the playoffs. But really what you want to do is you want to spend it now so you get the most for it. If you spend $20 now and you get James Robinson for the next 15 weeks, you're really, really, really maximizing your dollar. If you wait until the end and you blow $30 on somebody that you maybe only need to spend $5 for, and you get them for 2 weeks, maybe not the best use of your money. It may help you win a championship, but at the same time, we're looking to maximize over the duration of the season. So for that, I'd be a little bit higher. I'd probably go 20-25% on James Robinson if I'm running back needy.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, we did a pre-show meeting to discuss some of these, and it's the one thing I asked Mike was, "Hey Mike, what do you think about my order?" He's like, "Yeah, it looks good." And then of course he comes on live on the air and he just completely but that's fine. It's fine.
As I thought through it more.
Of course, I know that's what we reflect on these. And you know what? Yeah, I'd probably have James Robinson at the top 2. So scratch that. James Robinson is a guy. Number 3 on my list, Chicago Bears running back Khalil Herbert. So he only had 29% of snaps, but he did rush 9 times for 49 yards and had the touchdown. So it's one of these situations once again. Now, that whole Chicago Niners game was a bit of a mess, period. So it's really hard to glean like any real takeaways from that because it was just the game itself was just a mess, right? Both literally and figuratively. But Khalil Herbert's going to be a real part of this offense. And it's one of the reasons why we didn't get a lot of David Montgomery, because you could pretty much wait till around 11-12, pick up Khalil Herbert and get a pretty similar production out of that. So, look, Herbert's probably not going to be a guy you want to start every single week, but as we get into the bye weeks, which doesn't start till week 6 this year, but as we get into the bye weeks, as injuries start to pile up, that's when you're going to have to find these prayer type players that have an opportunity every single week. And Khalil Herbert is one of those guys. What do you think?
Yep, I love it. I was always big on Khalil Herbert's talent coming out. I heard him comp to kind of guys like running style like Lev Bell, the way that he has that pace and anticipation, the way he lets things develop in front of him. I don't know that he's quite at that level, but I've always been high on him as a player. So I think I'm a little more overweight on him than some other players just because of the dynasty shares that I have of him. And I picked him up later in a lot of my drafts this year. So I dig it. I think I think you can safely bid 5 to 10, 12% somewhere around there. And like you said, he's definitely a bye week flex play, and his upside, he has RB1 upside if Montgomery goes down.
Yeah,
if you own Montgomery and you don't have him, I would bid 20-25%. I would make sure that I get Khalil Herbert on my team. Absolutely. I would overpay for him if I'm the Montgomery owner.
That's sharp for sure. Okay, so let's move on. Rex Burkhead. Oh my good Lord.
Ugh.
Okay, so Rex Burkhead, of course, of the Houston Texans, had 71% of snaps and he actually looked decent yesterday against the Colts. 14, so he rushed 14 times for 40 yards, but he caught 5 targets for 30 yards. Again, the key here is the fact that he's getting that rushing or that production through the air. Now, by comparison, one of our favorites, Damien Pierce, he only played for 29% of snaps. He had 11 attempts, but he only had 1 target for 6 yards, or 1 target, 1 reception for 6 yards. Needless to say, it was a little bit disappointing, but I mean, these old crusty coaches like Lovie Smith, maybe just like, hey, listen, rookie, like you got to earn your stripes in real game situations. I don't want to get over my skis on Rex Burkhead, but he's still a running back. He's still the starter on an NFL team, and I think he's a serviceable flex play every single week. I would be probably willing to bid 5-6%.
Yep. Yeah, that's about right. I think that his usage will drop in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and Damien Pierce's will start to elevate because Rex Burkhead is what, 32, 33? He's older. He's older for a running back.
Yeah, he is 32 years old.
32 years old. Yeah. So he's got some miles on him. I just think that Pierce is a better player, and by week 4, I think Pierce is going to have. I think the shares are going to the snap shares are going to be flip flopped. I think you'll see Pierce at 70, you'll see Burkhead at 30.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Okay, Dontrell Hilliard, the running back for the Tennessee Titans. Now, he didn't play a lot of snaps. He was only on 82%, but he did catch 3 or 4 targets, including 61 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. So, look, we all know Tennessee is a Derrick Henry show, but I think we're starting to see it. And last year, Henry had, once again, elite usage. He got injured. He did get hurt. He did miss a couple plays this game, but he did come back in, finish the game, obviously. But I get the feeling the Titans, they really do have playoff aspirations. Now, the only way it's going to happen, and they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, was with a healthy Derrick Henry. They're going to get Dontrell Hilliard a little bit more involved. He's probably going to be the passing down back. So he's going to be a player that, again, in deeper leagues, especially PPR leagues, you might have to play him in your flex when push comes to shove. So probably 5%, 4 or 5% of my budget max for Dontrell.
Yep.
You know, less than that.
No, I think 4 or 5% is fine. Like I said earlier in the season, you can spend a little bit more because you want guys that you'll get a little bit more mileage out of. If anything happens to Henry, I think that they would probably look elsewhere. I don't know that Hilliard would take over the as the 3 down back, but I think that he has standalone flex value once we get into the bye weeks. And if you see something happen to Henry, his usage will jump up.
Hilliard, he's 5'11", 202 pounds. So he's not a big guy, but he can still take a hit, right? Like he's not one of these 190-pound players, so he can take a hit. He's not just a pure scat back.
He held his own last year too.
Exactly. Now, Jayla Warren originally had higher up on my list, but running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, rookie running back, in fact, he moved his way up the depth chart this year, and he came into the game as the RB2. Naji Harris got hurt. It looked like it could be worse than what it was, but it sounds like he's not going to miss any time. So he's probably going to play in week 2, which I believe is against the Patriots. So Jaylen Warren, he's a guy that's worth stashing because, generally speaking, we have this approach where we like to stash these cuff running backs on our benches, and that's what Jaylen Warren is right now. But the problem is that Naji Harris, once again, did not do very well. I think he averaged I don't have the number in front of me, but 2.2 yards per carry yesterday. So it's classic. The Niners O-line is putrid. The reason Naji Harris is so elite for fantasy is because, 1, he's an amazing player, but 2, because of the usage. He's going to get 80-90% of the opportunity share in that backfield. If Jaylen Warren was to step in, I don't think he's going to get that same opportunity share. So obviously he's not quite as sexy. Maybe upside as a starter, 10, 11 points, hoping to get into the box. But
low end RB2. Like he's not a 1-for-1 replacement the way that you see some handcuffs truly are. So
no. So I'd bid maybe 1 to 3% on Jaylen Warren, depending on how ambitious you are. But he's not a guy that I'm going crazy after now with the updated news just as of a couple hours ago that Naji Harris isn't expected to miss any time, which is good news. Now, last player. This is nasty. This is disgusting. One of our flex plays before the start sits came out, so this was Saturday morning, was Tyler Algier, the rookie running back on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Algier much to my chagrin, was a healthy scratch.
Oof.
Damien Williams, who our friend over at Roster Watch, Byron Lambert, was talking about, he's preaching from the rafters. Damien Williams is going to be the second RB in this offense. And lo and behold, he was. He did get hurt. He did injure his ribs in the game, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. He's still going to play. So again, maybe 1%, maybe just a $0 bid, because I don't think anybody's going to be bidding on Damien Williams, but he's the RB2 in that offense. Can I just say, at least now, Cordell Patterson, man, he was a steal in drafts. You could get him around 10. And yeah, we know he's probably not going to stay healthy, but man, all he does is produce. Because look, the NFL, it's a new thing. Like, we always talk about the Deebo Samuel role, but that's the same role he played last year. So it's exciting to see, man.
I think he's another one. Like, he's just, as much as we hate to admit it, he's a good football player.
He's a good football player. Exactly. Okay, let's move on, because you have a hard out in about 15, 30 minutes sort of thing. Yep. Are there any RBs we missed? Any RBs you want to bring up, or you think we got them all?
Yeah, I think we got them all.
All right, okay, let's move on to the wide receiver position. Now, okay, starting off right at the top is my top waiver ad is Jihad Dodson, the rookie wide receiver for those Washington Commandos. Yes, I know it's the Commanders, but forever they're going to be Commandos to me, because Dan Snyder, he goes commando. Anyways, so Jihad Dodson, what you like to see is, I mean, frankly, both him and Curtis Samuel had great games, but Jihad Dodson, 88% of snaps, he ran 40 routes, he had 5 targets, he went 3 for 40, and had 2 touchdowns. We heard it all camp. He had great chemistry with Carson Wentz. And TMC, although John Hansen on SiriusXM for Fantasy Points was talking about how he thinks that Jihad Dodson is going to overtake TMC as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. I'm not quite there yet, because TMC I love. He's a more complete player, but Jihad Dodson's a dog. I mean, he was somebody that we've been on this whole preseason process. When he went in round 1, we were ecstatic, and he's proven that he's got that chemistry, man. At the end of the day, if you can get 2 touchdowns on your first game, it's very impressive. So I have Jihad Dodson as my top waiver ad. I'm probably willing to bid upwards of 15 to 20% for this guy.
Yep. Yeah, I would be inclined to do the same. Brandon D. Adam has been all over him since the very beginning. He was very high on his catch radius, even though he's not. He plays bigger than he is. He's got a huge catch radius, even though he's not the biggest guy. He goes up. He high points the ball really, really well. He's a really good another really good technical route runner that's come out of Penn State. Like, I think we might just need to pay more attention to these guys that are coming out of Penn State. I mean, you got the Allen Robinsons. He didn't play so well, but Allen Robinson's a good football player. Chris Godwin, Jihad Dodson. These guys are just coming out they're just good wide receivers. So I love it.
Okay, moving on. Jarvis Landry. Now, Alan Seslowski of RotoWire was on our show, and I talked about how Landry has no sex appeal, and he really doesn't. But he did receive 9 targets, which led the team, and he went 7 for 114. Now, we didn't get in the box, because that's not what Jarvis Landry does. He doesn't catch touchdowns. But listen, in PPR leagues, man, it's just, Des Daxis and Jarvis Landry going 8 for 80 every single game, and that's pretty much what he did.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a Jarvis Landry guy. He's somewhere like, to me, he's always been like a PPR cheat code, kind of like a Jacoby Myers or a Hunter Renfrow, guys that you can get cheaper, guys that are going to produce for you. You throw him in your flex every single week, and it's what is he, 10th, 11th, 12th round? He was going this year. He was going 15th. I saw him later some places. Yeah. So I mean, that Jameis loves to sling it. He's nothing's better than Jameis down late when he's just slinging it all over the place. And Michael Thomas got in the box twice, but he didn't look like he's not the Mike Thomas of old. And I think what will happen is eventually Olave will emerge as the number 1 in there, but for now it's Jarvis.
Yeah, man. So I mean, like Olave, he also had a very good game. I'm just trying to pull up the stats real quick. So yeah, he did 74% snap share. He only had 3 targets though, which was a little bit disappointing. He did catch all 3 though, and then Thomas, he's still the lead dog in that offense. Really, he only had 8 targets for went 5 for 57, and then of course he scored the 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, which made the week for you, and which, congratulations, Saints, man, just to come back against the Falcons. The Falcons, they must have PTSD or something, because they cannot just hold on to these damn leads, and every single time they're up, it ain't over until the clocks show 0. So rest in peace. But yeah, man, Jarvis Landry, as at least for now, mixing in, it's gonna be messy every week. I mean, Alvin Kamara really didn't do too much, so Kamara is gonna have his games, but just based on the fact that they were behind, they had to throw the ball a lot, and Jarvis Landry he moves the chains, and that's what Jameis Winston's going to want to do. Okay, moving on. Curtis Samuel, again, of the aforementioned Washington Commandos, 71% snap share. He had 11 targets. He went 8 for 55 with a touchdown, plus he had 4 carries. Now, Curtis Samuel, Mike, this is a guy, before Deebo Samuel was a thing, we were screaming that Curtis Samuel should be that all-around utility knife type player. I mean, the guy is elusive. That's what he did in college. And he's 5'11", 196, but he's got a 4.31 40-yard dash. So the guy's got quicks. He's a professional wide receiver. I would have him higher up on this board, if not for the fact that, one, he's a commander. And two, he can tend to disappear. And I mean, we even saw it in previous seasons where you would have one game and then for the next month, you would do absolutely nothing for your fantasy team. So be cautious, but I would 7-8% maybe.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I was going to say around 5, so we're right in the same place. He did it his last year in Carolina, which is why they spent so much in free agency last year to bring him here. He had hamstring and groin injuries all year that kept him off the field. So this is what we were thinking when Rivera and North Turner came to Washington. We thought that this is the role that Samuel was going to play, and it's nice to see it come together. And you're happy for the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving on. Greg Dortch, Arizona Cardinals slot receiver. He played 91% of snaps. Okay. He basically was playing in place of Rondell Moore, who we found out he's going to miss 4 or 5 weeks. Yep. So Dortch caught 7 of 9 targets for 63 yards. And the thing is that you look at his advanced, just athleticism. He's not a super athlete, but he does have a 79th percentile agility score. And so when you look at these smaller slot wide receivers, that's exactly what you're looking for. So listen, as long as Rondell Moore's out, maybe when Rondell Moore comes back, if Dortch keeps playing like this, but you said it yourself, Mike, like Kyler Murray had eyes for this guy. And I'm convinced AJ Green is dust. Like he's still dust. Yeah. And it's going to be Dortch, man.
Yeah, I had hoped it was going to be an AJ Green week. I played in one spot where I was jammed up, but it didn't work out so well. But I think you look at Rondell Moore being out and combined with the fact that Zach Ertz was a little bit banged up. I mean, Dortch was there and he was healthy. So Kyler fed him. And I think that this just bodes well. Assuming that Rondell Moore is fully back to health when he gets back, I think this bodes well for him as well. So if he's been dropped, if he's out on your waiver wire, you may want to sneakily add him back in a week or two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? Because obviously DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for 6 games, so he'll be back week 7. And at that point, it might be just totally muddled. But for the next few weeks, you could probably plug in Greg Dortch with at least some semblance of confidence. So probably 5% max, 4 to 5%. Like none of these guys are going to destroy your slate, right? So, throw a few dollars on these guys. Next up, Julio Jones. Thought he was dust. I mean, he struggled with injuries, but as long as he's getting the opportunities, so he only had 5 targets, which it felt like if you were watching a game that all Tom Brady was doing was going to Julio Jones, but he did catch 3 of 5 for 69 yards, but he also rushed twice for 17 yards in the win over Dallas. So, I mean, Julio Jones, as long as he's healthy, and Chris Godwin got banged up, of course. Now, I didn't hear. So was the hamstring on the same leg as where he tore his ACL, or was it the opposite one?
I think it was the opposite one because when I read about it, it read as a compensation injury. So a lot of times what you see is these guys that come back from the ACLs, they have issues on the other side because they're trying to compensate for them. It's not out of the ordinary for them to actually tear the ACL on the other side the year after they tear the ACL on one side. I think it happened to Deshaun Watson his rookie year. He had torn his ACL his senior year of college, and then or previously, and he came back and tore the other ACL his rookie year. So there's all sorts of injuries and complementary injuries that are associated with these major injuries. It's the reason that I was off CMC this year, and typically it's the reason that we're off these guys coming back early off these ACLs and major injuries. Obviously, you see Robinson was the exception to that, but by and large, you want to fade them a round or two because of it.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we were joking in one of our drafts, so an auction draft we participated in. Chris Cobb went for $6, which was a steal. Even now, looking back, it was probably still a steal. But we were lower on him at DFS Army simply because all the reports coming out that he was going to be healthy is like, shit, maybe we're too low in this guy. But we stood by our process and we said we're not going to draft players coming off injury because the risk of them getting injured is just too high. I mean, when the guy doesn't practice in full, and all of a sudden his game day, and he's just, going as fast to his routes as he can and gaining that separation, like that's what happened. These injuries build up. So I'm going to break this one out. This is a geek one. So for those of you who drafted Godwin, rest in peace.
Hopium.
Oh, so good. And that's a geekism. Okay, let's move on. Tyler Boyd. He did catch the TD after T. Higgins left the game. He got 7 targets. He went 4 for 33 with the touchdown. Now, T. Higgins is in the concussion protocol. So sometimes it takes a few days. Other times it can take these players multiple weeks. So we don't know. Again, we're recording this on Monday evening, September 12th. We don't have an injury update yet on T. Higgins, but Tyler Boyd, he's a player that we're targeting a lot. He's one of the guys I targeted in Scott Fishbowl just because he's the kind of player that in the event of an injury of T, who has had injuries throughout his career, can step in and he's going to get production. He's a professional slot wide receiver. If he was on any other team, he'd be the de facto number 2. It just so happens there's 2 alphas on the Cincinnati Bengals. So I like the idea of going and targeting Tyler Boyd. Now, the thing is that if it's Tuesday night and we have an update about T. Higgins and it sounds like he's coming out of the protocol, maybe bid just a couple bucks on Tyler Boyd, but I'd be willing to go up to about 4 or 5% if we do, without any additional news on T. Higgins.
Yep, I would too. And I think that Tyler Boyd is the rare wide receiver handcuff. If either one of these guys, Chase or Higgins, misses any time, you look for a bump in production out of Tyler Boyd. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Cincinnati passing game when we move into one of the other positions. Sorry to throw a spoiler out there, but Boyd is just a really good football player. This is a high volume passing offense. Their defense has not improved the way that they said it was going to be. The offensive line did not look great. Burrow was under pressure all day. So it's going to be another high flying Cincinnati offense.
Yeah. And I don't have the number in front of me because again, it's so annoying. A lot of the advanced stats aren't out yet, which is what it is. But I think I heard somebody say that they ran something like 69 plays, which was near the league lead in week 1. So
they were up there last year too.
Yeah,
so it doesn't look like anything's changed.
Exactly. So they're going to run quickly. I mean, it's them, it's Dallas. So yeah, a guy like just getting any piece of that offense, and Tyler Boyd is a cheap way to get a part of that offense. Okay, a few more players and we'll move on to the other positions. Robbie Anderson. Oh man, Carolina. Too bad they didn't win. I don't know if I was cheering for Baker or not, but they lost. Robbie Anderson had 100% snap share, and he ran 33 routes, okay, which is pretty decent. Got 5 of 8, going for 102 yards and a touchdown. Of course, one of those, the touchdown catch, was a 75-yard bomb. So hard to say if he's going to be reliable. You said it before the show. You think it's fool's gold. I tend to agree with you. Hence why he's so low on this list. But you got to throw it out there. I still think DJ Moore's the alpha. We all know he's the alpha. He's going to get his. So this was Robbie Anderson game. If he didn't have that 75-yard touchdown, we would have forgotten about him, right? So those don't happen very often. So buy Robbie Anderson with caution, maybe a couple bucks. And,
$0 bid. $0 bid for me.
Yeah, maybe $1. It depends on how deep your league is. If you're in a shallow league, $0. Honestly, if you're in a shallow league, he's probably not even worth considering rostering. Okay, moving on. Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Devin Duvernay. Man, okay, so Duvernay had 2 touchdowns, which was fantastic. He went 4 for 4 on the 2 touchdowns, but he only had a 50% snap share. Thing about Devin Duvernay, and we've always been talking about this, like he was one of he would return kicks because he's a speedster. He has 4.39 speed. He was a guy that we really like, actually. Deep player. I have a decent number of shares of him in my best ball leagues just because, I mean, it was hard to say exactly where that pass distribution was going to go in Baltimore just because who else did they have? But Devin Duvernay, he's going to be very much bust potential, boomer bust type player. But I mean, any pass catcher on that Baltimore Ravens offense, but he's worth throwing maybe a $0 bid, $1 bid. Just throw him on a waiver if you want to build up your depth. And the thing about these players at this stage of your bench, you're going to be churning these guys constantly, right? So Devin Duvernay is worth the guy picking up just to see what happens next week. Nothing happens, you drop him. No fuss, no muss. But Devin Duvernay, keep an eye out for him. Anything to add?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to go through these last couple guys quickly. So Kyle Phillips, Tennessee rookie. He was a 5th round pick this year. Listen, he played the slot. He played 46% of snaps. He went 6 for 66 on 9 targets. And the thing about Kyle Phillips, again, is that he's just de facto white slot wide receiver. And he has a 90th percentile agility score. So Robert Woods, he apparently was 100%. He didn't look 100%. Treylon Burks, it's been up and down. It's hard to say. So again, I still think Robert Woods and Trey Burks are going to be the de facto 1 and 2 in that offense. And in a low volume passing offense, you probably don't want exposure to that wide receiver 3. But in PPR leagues, again, just like we talked about with Jarvis Landry, this is a type of player where just put a $0 bid on there. Just throw him. So at the bottom of your waivers, and if you get him, just keep an eye on him. Maybe don't start him next week, but keep an eye on him, because if his usage continues to go at this rate, the Titans are going to play him. They're going to have no choice but to play their best players. So Kyle Phillips, worth a gamble there.
Yep, 1 to 2%.
1 to 2%. Okay, last wide receiver, Josh Palmer of the LA Chargers. Now, the only reason I have Palmer, because I'm not a big Palmer guy. I know he's got a little hive on Twitter of these Palmer fans. I'm not a big Palmer guy personally, but Keenan Allen, now I don't have an update on his injury, but he could miss a few weeks. So at that point, Josh Palmer is worth considering an ad. Same deal. Now, the thing with Josh Palmer is we're probably lower on him than some of the other sites out there, because like I said, there's some stands out there. So Palmer might be higher up on other people's lists. If you're confident about it, go for it. I'm not going to say if he's your guy, don't go and blow the budget on this guy. Maybe $2 or $3 max. Again, for me, he's more of a $1, $0 bid type player.
Yeah. I thought he was going to get run when Allen went down, but it looks like Palmer is the outside, is the number 2 outside receiver. And if Williams got hurt, then Palmer would have a ton of value. I forget what the guy's name that was running in the slot for Allen yesterday. But I mean, Allen is also at his 30
Was it DeAndre Carter?
Yeah, it was DeAndre Carter. Yep. Allen is also at his year 30 season. So we were afraid of this. We were afraid of the injury was going to get him. It was going to catch up to him at some point.
Yeah, and I was thinking about putting Carter on this list, but I mean, dude's 29 years old. Like, he's 5'8", 190. Like, he's just
he's a jag.
He caught the touchdown. He's just he's a jag. He caught the touchdown, and that saved his day. But if I'm going to choose between those two guys, it's going to be Josh Palmer for sure. So that is it for the wide receivers. Okay, real quick, let's talk about quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, he's going to miss 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it sounds like.
I thought it was 6 to 8.
Or 6 to 8. That's right. That's right. Initially, they thought it would be 4 weeks. It's going to be 6 to 8. He broke his finger. He fractured some, to be specific. He had surgery yesterday. Man, the Cowboys before that injury looked rough. They looked like every single play was a challenge, even for CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be long season, Cowboy fans, especially if you're stuck with Cooper Rush. So for your super flex leagues, throw a couple bucks on Cooper Rush, because hey, he's still a starting quarterback in the NFL. But if Geno Smith is out there now, look, I haven't seen the game. We're an hour. They've been playing for an hour now. I don't know what the score is. I don't know if Geno Smith is having a decent game or not. So if he is having a horrible game, don't tell me, Mike. Don't tell me. But I would rather have Geno Smith than I would rather have Cooper Rush. So just keep that in mind, okay? Also, I don't think it'll happen, but it came out recently that Jimmy Garoppolo was somebody that the Dallas Cowboys were interested in for this exact reason. They believe that they've got a good enough team to move forward. Obviously, Jimmy signed with the Niners, so that's not going to happen. But maybe if the Cowboys are willing to pay, maybe they can get Jimmy Garoppolo off the 49ers team.
Yep. Deep super flex leagues. I have a league super flex league where I kind of cheaped on quarterback, and I think my top 2 quarterbacks are like Lamar and Daniel Jones, and I took a flyer on Deshaun Watson late, so I'm probably going to drop Watson and maybe pick up Rush just for the heck of it.
It's a pulse, man. It's a quarterback with a pulse in Superflex leagues, especially the 12-team leagues. It's shit. If you're playing a 14-team Superflex league, well, congratulations. My hat off to you, because that's just maniacal anyways. But, yeah, man. Some of these leagues are crazy. Okay, let's move on. Tight end. This one was a little bit more challenging to sort through, but let's start off with Hayden Hurst. Okay, so Hayden Hurst, I think he's definitively going to be the pass-catching tight end in that offense. And 75% of snaps, he had 8 targets. Went 5 for 46. Now, he's going to be in that mass cluster of Jeff Ratcliffe calls them the 3 for 30 guys, right? So it's these 3 for 30 players. They're going to get 3 receptions for 30 yards, and you pray for that touchdown. That's what Hayden Hurst is. That's just he's in that bucket of players. But you like the snapshot count, and you like the fact that he got 8 targets, especially in your tight end premium leagues. That can add up quickly. So I have him as my number one waiver wire ad.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Again, we talked about that's a high volume passing offense. They had O.J. Howard in the building and they let him walk out. So that's kind of shocking just based off what he did in Houston this past week. But it more so it lets you know that they believe in Hurst as a pass catcher. So he played well. That catch he had towards the end of the game on the sideline where he got both those toes out. He's a beast. He was a first round draft pick, I think. He was actually drafted he was drafted ahead of Mark Andrews. So there's some pedigree there, and I've always been a Hayden Hurst guy. I like him. Just ask Mike Yeager.
There you go. Just ask Mike Yeager. All right, let's move on. Tyler Conklin, tight end for the New York Jets. 92% of snaps. He had 7 targets. He got 4 of them. Went 14 yards and a touchdown. Again, same bucket as Hurst, but we were saying it. Tyler Conklin is going to be the pass catching back for that offense, and he was.
Yep. He was a pass catcher. He was a primary pass catcher in Minnesota last year. It was between him and Zach Davidson when Irv Smith went down. And, he played well last year, played well enough that the Jets took a shot on him. Uzoma is more the blocking tight end, and Conklin's going to be the move guy that sees the targets in the passing game.
Yeah, so if you're desperate, you're deep, get deep, baby. Because guess what? In one of my leagues, I'm going to be starting Tyler. Now, granted, this is a dynasty league, but I'm going to be starting Tyler Conklin next week, which kill me now, but such is life in these deep dynasty leagues. Okay, moving on. O.J. Howard, Houston Texans tight end extraordinaire. He only played 17% of snaps, Mike, but he went 2 for 2. Got 2 touchdowns. So sometimes it's not the amount; it's more so the magnitude that we talk about. Now, touchdowns are finicky at best, but we do know that Houston Texans typically they like to draw plays for their tight ends. Now, by comparison, Brevin Jordan, who was a starter, he did play 60% of snaps, but he also only had 2 targets and basically did nothing with them. So I don't know, man. O.J. Howard was cut by the Bills, which was frankly a little bit surprising to me. Obviously, they have Dawson Knox, but I thought, hey, why not have him as a backup tight end? They didn't like what they saw in him, which obviously gave us worry. I guarantee you O.J. Howard is on your waiver wire. Probably in most leagues, including dynasty leagues, he's out there. Yep. Are you confident starting him every single week? Absolutely not. But the Texans looked decent yesterday, man. They looked better than we thought they would. And Davis Mills likes the tight end, and pick him up as a bench stash, mainly in these deeper leagues again. But he's a bench stash.
He's been in the building for a week. Like for him to go out there and get in the box twice, only being in the building for a week. He had athletic pedigree coming out of Alabama. I mean, he was a first-round draft pick for a reason. I think that he maybe the fit wasn't quite right for him in Tampa, but he's doing something right, and something's working in Houston. And 2 for 2 with 2 touchdowns after being there for 5 days of practice. So it's worth an end of the bench stash. What's the worst that happens? He doesn't do anything for the next 2 weeks, and you cut him. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, and deeper benches. So typically, my strategy for tight ends, unless I just absolutely waited, I typically will only roster 1 tight end in my redraft leagues. So I wouldn't necessarily go out and get it. But again, if you got like some of these leagues have 6 or 7 bench spots, if you need a second tight end because you got like Evan Ingram or some jag as your tight end 1, then O.J. Howard, he was somebody that we loved. He was a dynasty favorite, man. I saw him live in person. I was down on the field. He looks like an absolute monster. I'm like, this is the guy, and he's done nothing in his career so far. But O.J. Howard, take a shot on him. Okay, last but not least, he's a tight end. He's not a quarterback anymore. He's designated as a tight end. You know who I'm talking about. Taysom Hill of your New Orleans Saints.
This guy, he killed my Alvin Kamara shares yesterday. I was so pissed off. It was absolutely terrible. But he's not going away. The Saints, Sean Payton believed in him, and the new regime believes in him as well. Dennis Allen and the new regime believes in him as well. So if they're going to use him, you might as well play him. The nice part is that he gets run. I believe his touchdowns were on the ground rushing. So he's getting run on the ground. And if you can get somebody like that into your tight end spot, he's a cheat code. We actually talked about him when we were back in June, when we were talking about best balls. We talked about him as a last round draft pick because he has that tight end eligibility, but he could be a running back. He could be a quarterback. There's all sorts of things they could do with him. So as disgusting as it is, you gotta, if you're desperate, 2 tight end league, or if you're desperate in one of these deeper leagues, grab him.
Yeah, look, he rushed for 4 times. He got 81 yards and a touchdown. So it was a magical thing. It's going to be rough. I mean, I think the Saints in general, it's going to be a tough team to predict every single week because they do actually have a lot of talented players in that team. And if you're in a quarter or in a Superflex league and you do have Jameis Winston, that could be a problem because you're going to get vultured by Taysom Hill in a lot of these situations. So that's it, man. This week, the week 2 waiver wire show. Again, all of our content over at dfsarmy.com. We make money. As Geek always says, he likes to make money. And every single day, like literally one of our members, actually 2 of our members now have won the Millie Maker in the last couple of years. So not a bad start to the DFS Army team. So come check it out. There's a whole bunch of tools. One of the biggest things is that it's about learning from your mistakes, right? So for the last 2 or 3 weeks, on the Discord and with our members, the Geek's been going and doing back testing to determine optimal lineups for every single week in the 2021 season to learn and understand roster constructions, what wins, what doesn't win, ownership percentages, all that sort of thing. Things people way smarter than me get to do. So that's their bread and butter. And listen, it's producing results. You saw it just yesterday. Somebody won $1 million. So shout out to our guy, Rapid Fire XD, for being a longtime DFS Army member. Hit us up, dfsarmy.com. You can find all of our content there. You can, of course, reach out to myself at the Flex Network 1 on Twitter. You can reach out to Mike at Mike_Dickinson. Mike, thanks for jumping on. Hopefully you can come on more and more often.
Yep,
life's starting to get a little bit more normal for you.
Yep.
And that's it, man. Good luck in week 2, and let's keep cashing, baby. So for Mike, I'm Flex Shane, and we are the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show.